Hey everyone, welcome to the to the Wealth Seat, episode 61. This is take two. Okay, I think I deleted the one that was previous because I thought that I wasn't broadcasting in my group, but then when I actually got out of there, I really was broadcasting in the group. Y'all have to forgive me. I don't know where my marbles are at today. I know where they're at. The Lord's got it, right? The Lord's got it. So anyway, welcome to episode 61. We haven't been here in the last few weeks, so we thank you, even though you really didn't have a choice, right? We thank you for allowing us that time. But today we're here to talk about FEDNOW You. I haven't said anything much about FEDNOW since the fall of last year. And so I wanted to come today and just talk about, and I gotta, give me just a second, y'all. Okay, y'all. Sheesh. All right. I had to take that call, so I apologize. It wasn't a call that I could let it go voicemail because there's something that is being handled in the midst of me doing all this stuff, right? Life is life. And anyway, welcome to episode 61. Okay. And we are here to talk about FEDNOW You. That's right. We haven't talked about it on this platform since the fall of last year. So I wanted to come and just kind of remind everybody what FEDNOW is, talk about, some updates, some pros, some cons, what banks have already launched FedNow. I think the last time we talked, maybe there were only like about 5 banks or so that launched it. So there are several more that have launched FedNow. And honestly, it's something that you should be keeping up with. Okay. So if you've not been keeping up with it because you've been watching just the regular old news, right, that is talking about all this other stuff, celebrity news and all this other stuff that doesn't necessarily matter, then you may not have been paying attention to that. So I want to talk about that today. But first, we have to have our Kingdom Money Mindset moment, which is coming today from Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. And so for those of you who are new to the broadcast, I'm Lexi Johnson, by the way. I didn't realize I didn't do that in this take two. I am an international speaker. I'm a licensed financial coach and strategist, helping women entrepreneurs to master their money so that they can become the kingdom wealth builders that God has designed them, created them to be. That's what we're all about here. So we are going to Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, and it says, "Good people leave an inheritance to their grandchildren, but the sinner's wealth passes to the godly." Okay, good people leave an inheritance to their grandchildren, but the sinner's wealth passes to the godly. All right, so let's talk about this because oftentimes there are a lot of times in the financial space where it's based on, Bible. This is a verse that is quoted very often, right? And it should be, okay, because it tells us, hey, if we want to be in alignment with God in our finances, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we leave an inheritance. Now, notice it doesn't say to your children, but it does say leave an inheritance to your grandchildren. That's very interesting. I don't have time to go into that today, but the point is we're to be leaving an inheritance. And if we don't leave an inheritance, okay, well, not that if we don't leave an inheritance, but it further says that the sinner's wealth, okay, will pass to the godly. All right. Now, what do I want to talk about specifically? Because there's so many different directions we can go with this one first. But one of the things that I want to talk about today is not just leaving wealth for your family, but it's how you leave that wealth. In other words, estate planning, right? Succession planning. If you have a business, how do you have things set up in a way that if something were to happen to you, everyone is clear on how things are going to take place, who gets what, how much, when, how, all of that. Are your assets protected, right? So that they don't have to go through probate, right? So we're talking about having a will. We're talking about having a trust. We're talking about your health power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. We're talking about all of these different things, okay, that make up estate planning. And in business, it could be a buy-sell agreement, so that if something happens to you, and if you're in business with other people, you know, your family gets basically your family can get bought out, right? Get some money. And then the partner becomes 100% owner or whatever, type of buy-sell agreement, whatever the agreement is that's set up, right? So oftentimes when we look at the scripture, we talk about, oh yeah, I need to leave something, but how do you leave it? Okay. Now, this is not a podcast on estate planning and all of that or buy-sell agreements. We will do that in the future. But the truth of the matter is that you need to be looking at your things. And even if you have nothing to your name right now, you're gonna be like, Lexi, I don't have property. I don't even own a car. I mean, I don't own anything to put into a trust. I don't feel like I have anything worth putting into a will, which is not correct at all. Okay. If you got children, you need to have a will, period. Small children, that is, because whether you realize it or not, they actually can become awarded the state too, and the state can decide what happens to them, right? We tend to think that, things would just automatically pass down without us having to specify in legal documentation that this is the case, right? So the point here, because I don't want to belabor and go into this, and not a podcast on this, but the point is, it's not enough just to leave wealth. How are you leaving that wealth? Are your affairs in order? Will people, if something were to happen to you, be able to locate your bank accounts, have access to them? The people who you would want to have access to them, right? Not any and everybody, but your beneficiaries, right? Are your beneficiaries named? Do they know where your insurance policies are and the details of your insurance policies? Do they know where your bank accounts are and the details of your, maybe they don't know exactly what's in there, but they know where the bank account is, what the bank account numbers are, how to access all of this stuff, right? Do you have a TOD or a POD on your banking account, right? All of these different things, because it matters, okay? So that's our Kingdom Money moment. Let's now get into what we've come to talk about today, which is FEDNOW, and we're going to talk about how it affects you, okay? So let's talk about, let me first give you a refresher of what it is, okay? But try to keep it very, very basic. Really, what it is it's an instant payment service, okay? It was launched last July, okay? And I mean, that's basically what it is at the bottom line of it. Now, let me expound just a tad bit on that. Okay. This instant payment system was created by the Federal Reserve. Remember, we've had these discussions before in the past that the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the government, is not owned by the government. It is a private organization, okay, made up of all of these big time families and things that own the banks. All right. So FedNow it's an instant payment system that was created by the Federal Reserve. Okay. It offers you the ability to be able to utilize instant payment services. Okay. So through your bank. Okay. So basically, what is that? It's like a Cash App or a PayPal or a Square or Venmo or whatever other Chime may do some of this, right? Whatever other app or whatever that you can think of that you use to do instant payments, real time instant payments. That's what FedNow is. And this is the Federal Reserve's baby. Okay. So customers of various financial institutions, they can use their bank's app, okay, to send payments directly from their bank accounts. So now, what does that mean? You don't necessarily have to go from your bank to Cash App, from Cash App to somebody else, right? The bank is saying, hey, you don't have to do that. You can do everything directly with us, okay? Now, there are some banks that, and this is what we talked about last fall, there were some banks already who were eliminating your ability to use Zelle, right, or Cash App because they were now going to fully utilize the FedNow. Okay, not every bank is doing that. Okay, some banks will still allow for you to use other methods, Zelle, Cash App, whatever. But some banks have decided we're not using anything outside of this, right? And it's up to them to decide that. Okay, so the Federal Reserve has always allowed various different financial institutions to be able to send and receive funds, including bill and vendor payments, deposits, wire transfers. They could send these things to each other on behalf of their customers. Okay, so they've allowed the financial institutions to do this, right? Through, again, deposits, wire transfers, things of that nature. Okay. But now they have or more and more banks are increasingly installing the FedNow payment system, real-time system, okay, that will operate alongside these different types of things: wire transfers, vendor payments, deposits, bill pay. When I say vendor payments, that's what I mean, like bill pay. Okay. Most banks offer your online bill pay. So they say that the FedNow system is not to replace all of those other things, but this is now an additional service. Okay. So if it's not to replace those things, what is it actually replacing? Again, they say that it's not really designed to replace anything as of yet. However, I always caution us that it could, in the future, replace other things. Okay. It could definitely replace other things in the future. So it could replace wire transfers. It could replace, they're saying it's not likely, but it could. Now, something else that many in the financial space, and typically non-traditional, so to speak, financial space, they're also a little leery because they believe like this is just kind of the start of moving to a completely cashless system. Okay. Which, I don't know if we'll be completely cashless. We might not. But what I do know is that the more and more we move in that direction, the more that the value of the dollar will go down. Okay. And so that is definitely an issue for a lot of us. Okay. That would be an issue for a lot of us. Okay. It's going to mean that your dollar is not going to be worth what it once was. And so definitely I have done some podcasts, some broadcasts on what you need to be doing with some of your money, like putting it in gold and silver, right? Putting it in real estate, putting it in crypto, if that's your thing, right? Just putting it in some different things so that as the value of the dollar goes down, gold and silver, let's take for example, that always holds its value, right? It always holds its value because it's God's money, okay? It's God's money, y'all. So it always holds its value, right? So now if you have some of your wealth in that, then you can rest assured that you're not going to lose spending power, okay? As much spending power as you would if you left everything in the dollar, if you will, if everything stays in dollars, okay? So according to them, it's a new technology that hasn't been created to replace any existing payment systems, all right? But they do say it could become the more popular choice for transactions, and I definitely believe that as long as more and more banks on board this thing, it's definitely going to become very popular. And people are going to find that, oh, I don't even have to go outside of my banking app. I don't have to download another app, connect my bank to this app, and then move money from my bank to this app to take it from this app and to go somewhere else. So, people are gonna love it. Okay. People are gonna love it for that. All right. So how does it actually work? Again, just like any other real-time payment system, you have the payer, okay, which let's just say you have an employer who is going to pay their employee. You have that. They use the app that is provided by their bank or credit union to put in the amount that they desire to pay their employee, okay? Now, the bank of the employee sends back a request for payment. Okay. They're going to do that through the FEDNOW service. Then the payer confirms, okay, the transaction on their app. This is stuff that is happening all behind the scenes, but this stuff happens literally in seconds. Okay. So it's the same that happens with your Zelle, your Cash App, your whatever. Okay. So you got the payer who wants to pay the employee. They put in a request to their credit union to send out this money to this person. The bank of the employee sends back a request for payment, okay, to confirm the transaction. And then the payer approves, makes a confirmation. Then the credit union screens the payment, sends a payment message through the network, right? And then FedNow carries out the validation process on the payment message. Okay, then they pass it to the payer's bank. Okay, they credit the other person's bank, so on and so forth. This is what happens now, okay, with Cash App, Zelle, or anything like that. So it's not going to work too much differently from that. Okay, so I want to talk now about some pros and cons. What are pros and cons of this FedNow system? And then I'm going to talk about how many banks have implemented the FedNow system. What are some of those banks? We'll get into that. Okay. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Listen, I'll do my best to answer them. Okay. I'll do my best to answer them if I can. If I don't, I'm going to say, hey, I don't know, or I don't know, but I'll get the information for you or something like that. Okay. So let's talk about some pros and some cons. So one of the pros I already talked about was convenience, right? You don't have to wait till the next working day, before you can send or receive a transaction. It is absolutely instant, because there are still some banks where even with your Cash App, believe it or not, there are still some banks that are like, I don't care if you choose the instant, you're still not going to get it until the next day, right? So with FedNow, and the banks that are using this, it can eliminate that. There are reductions in delays and friction. Okay, so um, the most that you're going to have to do is, do you accept this transaction? Right? So it's going to be very quick, seconds, they say. They say another con is centralized security. Okay, because the system is, the baby of the Federal Reserve, which is a centralized place, that it is going to give people a peace of mind, knowing which organization to turn to if there's fraud or other cybersecurity concerns arise, which is also, again, I can see this as a pro, because sometimes with these other apps, Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, sometimes it's hard to get to someone, right? Talk to somebody on the phone, or especially in the beginning of these things. They've gotten better, they've gotten much better, but it would be tough, right? If some fraud took place or you sent something by mistake or whatever, it would be hard to get in touch with somebody, to talk to an actual person, all of that. So here they're saying that because, this is a centralized thing, there's centralized security, and there's a peace of mind, they say, okay, if there's fraud or any other kind of cybersecurity concern. All right, so another pro that they say is that there's limited time for any hackers to intercept a transaction. So when you have a wire, the wire can go somewhat quickly. Sometimes they can take up to a day or two. It gives time for hackers to intercept what's going on. So with FedNow, they said these hackers have a very limited window. Okay, so there's still a window, but I guess not as big of a window as it would be with some of these other methods. And then the return on investment, they say that the efficiency of FedNow is going to be very attractive for businesses. It's going to help businesses retain new customers because of the speed of everything and the efficiency of everything. And that its automation is going to reduce any operational expenditure. So if you use, something like Square, or one of these other things, perhaps there are fees between you and the customer. Not perhaps, there are, right? Cash App, same thing, because, to put it in your bank, if you want to put it in your bank instantly, there's a fee. If you want to, for example, like I use Square for most 98% of my transactions go through Square. And so when it's on the Square platform and I want to move it to my bank, I can either, first of all, they're already taking a fee off the top just for using the platform. Then if you want to move that money off the platform into your bank, and if, let's say, you want to do it instantly, there's another fee for that, right? So it begins to get pretty costly. So they're saying that, using the FedNow system is going to be great for business owners, because they are not going to have to pay as much. We're not going to have to pay as much as we do now in these various different fees. Okay. So let's talk about some cons, right? We got pros, but there's also some cons. All right. So because it works so quickly, right, there's no time to, check and make sure and reverse things. In fact, with the FedNow system, the payments are irreversible. Okay. Now, we don't like that. We don't like that the fact that the payments are irreversible. The Cash App used to be like that, but they've gotten to a place now where things can be reversed. Some of the other apps as well have gotten to a place where things can be reversed. At this point in time with FEDNOW, the payments are irreversible. Once the transactions are made, there is no going back. Okay, so you have to be really, really careful, not make errors. Okay. Or if you want to you bought something and now you have buyer's remorse and want to send it back, it's like it can't be undone. Okay. The FedNow system does pose new fraud risk. Okay. Just as much as there is some safety, there's also, this is with anything, right? Particularly in technology. Something is invented and made to be used for good, and people will find a way to use it for bad. Okay. So this is going to give rise to some new ways for people to attack. Phishing attacks can become more prevalent as FedNow rises in its popularity. And that's because the scammers are going to know that, that the transactions are fast and they're permanent, they're irreversible. Okay. So once I got your money, if I'm a scammer, once I got your money, I'm gone with the wind, right? Because there's no way to reverse it. So scammers will love it for this. Okay. No cross-border payments. All right. So you're not going to be able to make any transactions across borders. So there's going to be limited functionality, okay, outside of any kind of local exchanges. They have talked about kind of fixing this, but I don't think that it is a priority for them to fix right now. Okay. So those are some of the cons. Now, again, I mentioned that there are people who believe that this FedNow system really is just opening the door to becoming a complete cashless society, and that's going to come with all of its own issues, right? The de-dollarization. I think I said that right. De-dollarization. In other words, the devaluing of the dollar. So that remains to be seen. I mean, I think that the value of the dollar definitely, as more and more banks use this, is going to go down. Not sure that we'll be completely cashless, but boy, I think, I think it'll be right up there. Okay. So now let's talk about some banks that are participating. Let's talk about some banks that are participating in the FedNow. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire list of banks. And what I have noticed initially in the fall, when we talked about this, there were like a few big banks that were taking this on. Wells Fargo was one, US Bank was another, Chase was another. But what I have noticed here recently is that, especially for like your regional banks, your community banks, things of that nature, that it really just depends on the state you're in, and all of that, right? So I am going to pick a state. Let's just do Illinois, and look at some of the banks that have started to participate in this. So you've got, and it also depends not even just the state, but the city where you're at, because it literally is each bank. Depending on the city and depending on the state. So you could have, like in this case, a city national bank that's in Metropolis, Illinois, that participates. But in Casey, Illinois, or Hillsborough, Illinois, or Belleville, Illinois, or Gurnee, Illinois, they don't participate. Okay. So it's literally going to come down to city and state that you're in. Okay. So Fairfield, Illinois, for example, the Fairfield National Bank is participating. Crossroads Bank, but only at Effingham, Illinois, right? So depending on where you live, if you're listening and you want me to check out to see whether hey, mom, good to see you. If you want me to check out and see what banks in your city and state are participating in FedNow, you can just drop it in the comments. I'm only doing this while we're live, okay? So if you're watching the replay, I will not be coming back into the comments telling you what banks are participating in your city and state, but only will do this for those who are live if they are interested, since I have the list pulled up. If you are interested in knowing what banks in your city, I can share that with you pretty quickly. So just drop it in the comments. Otherwise, like I said, I'm just gonna, I'm picking out a couple random banks, random cities, random states. So Illinois, the Bank of Belleville, which is Belleville, Illinois, right? But you also have First Bank, that's in Carmi, Illinois. So if there are any other First Banks anywhere, the only one in Illinois that's participating is the one in Carmi, Illinois, right? So trying to see if they have any Farmers and Merchants State Bank, okay? But that's in Bushnell, Illinois. Didn't see it anywhere else, okay? Bushnell, Illinois. So it all just depends on the city and the state in which you live. I'm going to go up and grab, because I know I have, quite a few listeners and people watching on the replay from like Indianapolis, Indiana. So I am going to scroll. We got the First Internet Bank of Indiana, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana. You got Indiana Members Credit Union. You have, that's it, I think, for Indianapolis so far. South Bend has the First Source Bank. Newcastle, Citizen State Bank. These are all like cities in Indiana. Bloomington is the Indiana University Credit Union, which I would imagine. Oh, Indianapolis also has Indiana Members Credit Union. So it just all depends on the state and the city in which you live. You can get on the internet and look up, or you can just contact your bank. If you're really just interested in what your bank is doing, you can just contact your bank and ask them. So right now, they say there are over like 9,000 or so banks across the, across the U.S. And right now, only 470 banks and credit unions have joined the network. But that is definitely up from the 5 that I mentioned in the fall, right? So as time goes on, more and more banks are going to join, but they're also noticing that that more regional and community institutions are joining it, whereas a lot of the bigger banks haven't really yet signed on. We already know Wells Fargo, Chase, U.S. Bank. Those are probably like 3 of the what you would call the big banks, and they're all over, just about all over. But other than that, other big banks, they haven't signed on yet. So I thought that was interesting. I'm going to look into that and see if there's a specific reason why some of these bigger banks haven't been some of the first to sign on. So that's that. They're saying right now, a lot of regional and community institutions are the ones that are signing on. So if you bank at a regional or a community institution, a bank, credit union, you might want to call and see if they are, if they're part of this. Okay. Now, some other things that we want to be mindful of with this whole FedNow system that they don't talk about as much is the fact that now that it's going through the Federal Reserve, like they're privy to every one of your transactions. Okay. They are absolutely privy to every one of your transactions. We also want to be mindful because banks already have the ability to freeze and hold your money whenever they feel like it. Okay. And so a system like this could actually increase that. The other thing is when you go to something completely digital, which they say they're not replacing the dollar and things like that, but um, if there's a big internet shutdown, that's going to be a problem, right? You're not going to be able to um, to do business. And I don't mean just business as in business owners. I just mean in general, whatever your business is, you may not be able to do it. So these are some things that, we can think about that you say it's not likely, but I mean, we've seen these things already happen without this system being in place, right? You banks now, like they can almost hold your money for any old reason. Oh, we're opening an account. Now we got to hold your money for 7 days, 10 days, right? Oh, it's more than $300. This thing coming in, we're going to hold it for, they're just doing crazy things. And it's likely that FEDNOW could increase the likelihood of those types of things. And I almost can see it, y'all, because banks have to have so much on them. Anyway, that is that on the FEDNOW system. I don't see any questions related to that. So that is our episode for today. I just want to share with you guys some things that are upcoming. This Saturday, we are doing our Building Wealth podcast, okay? That is led by Apostle Juanita Corey Jackson and our other co-host, Minister Hope, and myself. We have a special guest this week, so we want you to tune in. That's going to be at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you are in the Money Mastery for Her group, it's going to be shared to that group. If you are not in that group, join the group. What are you waiting on? Money Mastery for Her. Number 4, okay? Money Mastery number 4, her. Don't wait to join the group. Join the group so that you can see that. And of course, you can also get it in Apostle Juanita's platform. The announcement is on my personal page, but you're not going to be able to watch it necessarily on my personal page. Okay. You're going to be in the Money Mastery for Her group. So that's coming up this Saturday. All right. What else is coming up? We're preparing a team of missionaries to go to Botswana in August. Yes, we are. And we're excited about it. We are raising funds because what we want to do when we get there is before we get there, we want to purchase a plot of land. And when we get there, we want to have already given them funds to get materials to put up a orphanage and a community center for what they call the Sans People, S-A-N-S, Sans People. You can look them up, Sans People of Botswana. They are commonly known as Bushmen. And so this is who the center will be for, okay? So to help so that they can learn different skills, learn how to, there's a lot of challenges that population faces. So I don't have time to get in on all of that today, but anyhow, we are raising funds to do that. So if you would like to support our endeavor, you can go to bit.ly/MM4H donations. This is in the description, okay? That's for individuals. If you are a business and you would like to sponsor, you can go to bit.ly/MM4H sponsor, and you can see all of the sponsorship packages that are available, and partner with us in doing something amazing for the kingdom. If you have been called as a kingdom wealth builder, a kingdom financier, then these are great opportunities to invest in the kingdom of God. The next thing that I want to remind everybody of is that at the beginning of the year, we did a fast called Unshakeable, the Unshakeable Fast for finances. If you were not able to join us, lucky for you, you can still do this fast. You can do it on your own. There is a link. You would just put in your email. You're going to get the fast instructions. You're going to get, and every day you're going to get a teaching. Okay, the teaching that we did for each day of the fast, it was 14 days. Okay, it was 14 days. And you may not want to do a 14-day. Maybe you want to do 7 and you want to watch 2 videos in one day. Doesn't matter however you do it. That's up to you, right? But it is a 14-day fast. And along with that, I made a custom journal, okay, a customized journal for that 14-day fast. What do I mean by customized, right? So I taught everybody what we should be doing when we're fasting, right? Because just simply turning down your plate and doing nothing else, that's not fasting. That's just a diet that you went on for a few days, okay? But we talked about what do we do throughout the day, okay? So they had, their scriptures to review, so they made sure that they're spending time reading the word. We had this 1-1-1 thing going on, 1 hour in the word, 1 hour of worship, 1 hour of praise, and then 15 to 30 minutes of just sitting and waiting to hear from the Lord. And this journal helps you to facilitate all of that. Now, do you absolutely need this? You do not. You can just use a notebook, okay? So I don't want anybody to not put their email in and get information on the fast because you don't have the money to purchase a journal. This is not required. Okay. It's just nice because it's customized for the fast. And so if you have the discretionary income to do that, then you can do that. You can get this hardback journal like this, but I also have a PDF available. I think it's like for $10 or something like that. Okay. Get in where you fit in. But if you are experiencing some turmoil in your finances, and you have been for a while, or there's just some generational things as it relates to your finances that keeps coming up and showing up in every generation, I'm going to encourage you to do this fast. Okay, so that's that. There are other things in the description, like merch and all of that good stuff. You can check all of that stuff out there. But I thank you for tuning in, and do me a favor, share this out. Somebody else on your timeline needs to know about FEDNOW, where it is right now and what's going on with it and what they need to be looking out for. And that's that. So we'll see you next Thursday with another episode of The Wealth Seed. Thanks for joining. Bye.